welcome all to today's Build a Better Book panel. This is a really special event where we are featuring two very special guests here. And there are two of us that are going to be moderating, and then two folks here that are our guests. So I am one of the moderators. I'm Janet Hollingsworth, and I am the director of Maker Experiences and Entrepreneurism at Washington Leadership Academy in Washington, D.C. I've got some amazing students that are here that are part of my Engineering with Emma workshop program that I run. And they have brought some questions to the table in addition to everybody else.
And I'm Abraham Orozco. I'm the Scientific Arts Director at Heart of Los Angeles and partner with Janet in the Build a Better Book project as well. And we wanted to come together to have two excellent panelists join us and share their experiences with students and members of the Build a Better Book Network, and then to just the general audience. So thank you for coming.
So I'm just going to provide a little bit of an overview of kind of like what we're hoping to accomplish in the next hour here, and then we'll jump into introductions, and then we'll go into questions. Because that's really where the exciting stuff happens. So we're really here to address some of the immediate challenges that are being experienced by members of the blind and visually impaired community, especially in the context of a pandemic that we're all experiencing. So we're kind of opening up the Build a Better Book program into, what is universal design? What does empathetic design thinking look like? And how can it benefit all people right now in the midst of some really challenging times? So that's kind of like the framework that we're thinking about here. In the class that I'm teaching in particular at Washington Leadership Academy, we've been doing a series on tactile board game development and multimodal approaches to like how we share information. So, and we've been doing it all remotely. So this is a really special opportunity for some of our students to get a chance to ask you questions to inform their design process. And hopefully this will be very relevant to both educators that are developing projects right now, as well as students who are doing their work right now. So that's kind of the overarching goal of what we're trying to do. So I'm going to very briefly introduce Luanne. Luanne Burke is an artist, a storyteller, a sculptor, a watercolorist, and an athlete. She is based in Colorado, in a new part of Colorado that she just moved to. She is an amazing individual that I had the privilege of working with at Building 61, which is the Boulder Public Library makerspace in Colorado. And we worked together for several years on laser cutting, sewing projects, soldering, you name it. It was kind of a little bit of everything. And it was in our time together that we ended up hiring Luanne to be our maker in residence. And she taught workshops to the entire community, and it was a really wonderful experience. So, so Luanne, I'd love you to just share a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Thanks, Janet. I have been doing art for a very long time, and I used to be able to see, and I had a BFA in art. And so I went through art school, sighted, and my area of emphasis was drawing and painting. And I did on location watercolor painting, which was great. I loved going out and being on location. And I also studied the figure for a very long time. As my vision changed, I kind of moved more towards three-dimensional work, just kind of naturally moved into it. And it's predominantly what I do, but I'm always open to new things, and I still know how to paint, and I have a very different experience of doing artwork now. And I would say that the laser cutting was really exciting because I cannot see my drawings anymore. But when I would draw and then they would do the cutting, I was able to feel my drawing style was the same, and it was me. really a wonderful experience to go, there it is. There's the drawing that I do. And I'm still the same person doing art. So that's about it.
Thank you, Luanne. And Abraham, did you want to?
Thank you for that introduction, Luanne. And I have the pleasure of introducing Jimmy Uharriet, who I had the pleasure of meeting this summer through a program called Project Invent. But I know that he's been connected to Janet for a while and is highly regarded. And Jimmy comes to us. He is a mechanic at United Airlines and has been blind for the past 4.5 years. And he's, again, a strong partner and collaborator with Project Invent. And it's a design thinking program out of the Bay Area that works with high school students. And their goal is to build inventions to help make the world a better place. And yeah, so Jimmy, take it away.
Thank you, Abraham. Can you guys hear me okay? I wanted to, first things first, I'm very thankful to be here right now and to be on the Zoom meeting talking to all of you. Working with in the past, I've only been blind 4.5 years. I lost my vision. I'm completely blind now. I lost my vision due to an accident. And after my accident, times are really tough. But it was working with Project Invent, students like yourselves who wanted to think and help others, help us disabled people, that drove me out of the depths of wanting to give up. I was very thankful to be a part of it. And I'm very thankful to be here now. Well, what I did before was I was a mechanic for United Airlines, as Abraham said, and I worked on jet bridges, like not the actual airplanes, but what you walk on before you get on the airplanes, things of that sort. I was very fortunate enough to come back to United Airlines. I've been back as a blind mechanic for 2.5 years now. And I'm gonna go ahead and say I wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for the students that I work with in Project Invent. Those kids brought me out of hard times and gave me motivation. They drove me to overcome a lot of bad things in my brain. And thankfully, I'm here today. I took work off early, and it's a blessing to be right here, right now, in this group. And any questions you guys have, feel free to ask. And keep in mind, this has only been my experience. I've only been blind 4.5 years, but I'm open. And please, fire away.
Thank you for that, Jimmy. And just like Jimmy said, and I'll post this in the chat as well, if you do have any questions or comments that you would like to have us consider, please type them in the chat and we'll save them for the appropriate moment.
So we'll kick this off with a couple questions to kind of get the conversation rolling, but thank you both so much for being here again. Both of your stories are just incredible, and there's so much strength in who you both are as individuals, and I think that we have a lot to benefit from hearing from you today. So just to kind of like jump into like where we're at right now, a number of students in my class were really curious about being in COVID times as we are bombarded with messaging around us all the time. And most of it's very visual. So it's things like wearing a mask and keeping 6-foot distances and directional arrows in grocery stores. The students and we were having a conversation about this the other day, and we were really curious, like, what are the greatest challenges that you're experiencing right now? And what does that look like for you? And Luanne, let's start with you, and then we'll go over to Jimmy.
Well, probably for me, the biggest thing is transportation. I use public transportation, and it's been, I've been very hesitant to use it, and that has really changed my life, because that's how I get around. And so I did slow down just like the rest of America, or some of them. But the one thing that's interesting about being a blind person, when COVID hit, a lot of my friends and I were talking, and we're like, oh, people are dealing with isolation. Well, welcome to the club. We've been here for a really, really long time. Because that is a major concern for people that are blind, and especially newly blind, because everybody needs community. And I feel like since I had dealt with that before, I had some coping skills that other people didn't have in place. But I would say the thing that's been complicated is I use the trails a lot, and my dog and I run and walk constantly. And so I didn't even know it, but they had put all these signs up that said, you know, all of a sudden the trails were just packed. All these people that were always out of town were in town, and they were on the trails, and everybody right up behind me and ding their bell. I'm like, don't know what that means, but dogs are trained to shoreline the left to keep the blind person from falling off the curb. So all the signs, and it's an issue anyway, but with so many more people, they didn't know me. They didn't recognize that my dog is a guide dog. And they were, you know, yelling at me to get off the side of the trail, and just different issues like that. That was number one biggest issue for me during the summer with the pandemic, because it was just a mass amount of people on the trails and on the bike paths, which didn't typically used to be bike paths. They were just walking trails and stuff. So, and then my friends who came and ran with me one day said, oh man, there's signs everywhere, which I never knew about. But I still couldn't really remedy that anyway. I needed people to be considerate and flexible. That's the number one thing. I really needed people to be flexible, and some people have a harder time with that than others. So.
Thanks, Luanne. Yeah, that's really insightful, and it's definitely been on my mind as well. Jimmy, did you want to jump in and just share a little bit about your experience right now?
Yes, well, COVID, because I work at the airport, we were considered essential workers, and the airport has the germs of the world. And due to that, I take public transportation to work every day also. That's one of my big concerns. So I always carry hand sanitizer and wipe up where I sit and whatnot. But here's the catch. As an employee at the airport, they have to do biometric scanning on your fingers. Everybody puts their finger on that, and it has to be bare skin. That causes a lot of issues, and it's scary. Yeah, okay, after you put your finger on to read it, well, you have to put hand sanitizer immediately after. Well, then you have to touch another door. Well, that's what's kind of been an issue. And also me, I do, I do, sorry. I do my work all by hand. Everything's by feel. So me working in that environment, I use everything by touch where I navigate. And that becomes really, honestly, it's scary because I have to touch everything, really. And yeah, sure, I wear gloves, but the work I do, I need my dexterity. I need the finger. I need the feel. So I have little things that I have done. I've cut the tips off of latex gloves, but that's not enough. And also, like Luanne said, is being recognized as a blind individual. That's really a big problem for me. I wear fluorescent life vest with a fluorescent hat. Also, I've had to put my cane in the air and swing it around for a driver to notice me. Things like that. So as far as that goes, that's been a big issue for me also.
Well, thank you for that, Jimmy, too. And kind of, I mean, you guys both kind of hit upon the next question, but with those limitations that are being set by restrictions and COVID, do you feel that your ability to self-advocate in those moments has been affected? And if it has, how has that? And Jimmy or Luanne, you can jump in.
I would say there's been this whole different, not, it's more than a mood in the country, but you know, a whole different vibe going. And I do feel like, you know, the world's become somewhat more divisive, but at the same time, it's what I noticed is that people were, there are people that had been more divided in the past, reached out to me while I was on the trail and said, hey, I've seen you for years, or really saying hello to me, which was really interesting. And then there would be just a few. It was great because, you know, I asked somebody, I said, how come I only remember the bad things? And they said that that's human nature. But I decided, well, I have, you know, the capacity to let go of the difficult things, which are people yelling at me, like, you know, calling me an idiot because I'm in their way or something like that. And how do I advocate for that? And I was out one morning, and it was right after John Lewis had passed. And this guy was really, really mad at me. And I was in a great mood. It was a Sunday morning. I was out for a walk with my dog. Nobody was around, and he rode right at me. He had a 4-foot path he could have passed. And I thought to myself, he started yelling at me and everything. And I yelled back, and my voice raised and raised, but I was like, I didn't feel the intensity. And I just said to my brother later, I said, I just felt like I didn't want people pushing me around. I didn't change my mood. I was still in a really good mood, but I wasn't going to let this guy, he really was, and he came after me another day. And that's when he finally realized I was blind. But it was very interesting because somebody then said, well, oh, you should check out all this stuff, you know, check out these videos of John Lewis. And he, you know, he said, you know, he said, you know, make good trouble. And I kind of hung on to that, and I don't know. So that's been my experience. And every time I would go out, I would be like, I'd have to put myself in a certain space and say, okay, I'm going to be open and friendly and hope for the best. So I don't even know if I really answered the question, but that was my experience.
I think definitely the concept of making good trouble, like it hits a lot, especially right now. Like positive disruption. That's the key.
Well, as far as for me, I'm a big self-advocate, because I've put it this way, the work that I do at work, a lot of people think, oh, he has to have some vision. He has to be able to do the things he does. And I wish I was lying, honestly, but I'm not. I had one guy, uh, with all the work I do, he was surprised. And keep in mind, this guy's a Navy SEAL. He's up there. He's a sharp mechanic too. And he goes, yeah, well, let's see you with a with a Rubik's Cube. And I responded, you think you're sick? Walk a mile with my stick. And everyone was like, oh, because that was a good response. And I said, by the way, there's what's called a Braille cube for the blind. And he was stuck with his foot in his mouth. I've had many other occasions walking where a biker behind me was yelling, on your right, on your right. Well, I've been many places around this world. You pass on the left. This man kept yelling, didn't take into consideration that I had a stick in front of me and I'm walking. And he stops, said, can't you move? I turned around and I yelled at him. I said, you're going to talk to a blind man like that? Really? And then he didn't really know what to say after, and he rode away. I got hit by a car backing out too. I've had that many times, but you have to stand strong. I've been through a lot of pain, and it's students like yourselves and everybody with the Build a Better book that helped me. But during these times right now, what I see with people going through things, people are reaching out to me because now times are tough, and they realize that I've seen hard times. Everybody does, though. We're all in it for a ride, but still, they come to me, and I've noticed this a lot more. And I'm an open person, just like I am with your team, this team right now. Any questions, I'm here to talk. But anybody who needs help.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that insight too, and just how tricky some of these navigations are. But I think you open up a really nice opportunity here to go to some of our student questions. And I think we're going to try to have one of our students ask a question if they can unmute themselves. I would love to have Markeith ask his question if you are with us. If you want to unmute.
Hi. So my name is Markeith from Washington Leadership Academy. And I had a question for Jimmy. It was, so when you went blind, so what, well, I feel like you kind of did touch on this with your intro, but this question has like 3 parts. What kept you going? And how did your blindness hinder you at first? You know, apart from like the obvious vision, but and nowadays, does it help you in any ways?
Hi, Mark, Heath, and thank you for those questions. It's a long story, but I suffered an accident. I was in the hospital for 2 months. I'm at 42 hours of surgery. When I got out of the hospital, one of my friends died. And since my accident, I've had a total of 4 friends die. And accidents and other things. But right now, a big reason that's driving me, I'm doing it for them. And I'm also, without the students from Project Invent, in those hard times, the founder of Project Invent, I met her probably 4 months after I got out of the hospital. I know I met her for a reason. Me losing my blindness, I haven't admitted this to a lot of people, but I'll admit this to this group. If I were to go back and change my accident, change what happened, would I? No. I've learned a lot of things about myself and about what I really am, who I've really become. And it's taught me things, and it's showed me things, and it's inspired me in a lot of ways. Just like the questions you asked right there. It just shows me that there is a lot more hope in the future than I believed before. A lot of things have changed, and I think they've changed for the better. Sure, I've lost my sight. I've also lost my smell. I've also lost my taste. If you know how the brain works, on the serotonins, dopamines, and all that, it comes from taste, it comes from smells, it comes from sight, it comes from colors. I don't have any of that. But I've learned with the help of students, with the help of family, with the help of my trainer, with my gang, with United Airlines, to overcome these battles. Yeah, I've been blind 4.5 years, but I've been back at work 2.5 years. I'm doing this for those friends that I lost, for the friends I lost before, for the family, for the future, for you guys. I'm going to build something one day that will last forever. I don't want to be 65 and retired and be, what could I have done? This happened to me for a reason. I don't know if that answers all your questions, Mark, but if you want me to clear anything up, please let me know.
No, that was fantastic, actually. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Luanne, we actually had a few questions in a similar vein that students were curious about for you as well, especially being an athlete. Like where your strength comes from. I think that the question is really both one that Jimmy was getting at, where it's kind of this mental, emotional, social, and physical strength that we're talking about. But if there's any way that you can share where you derive strength from, that might be really insightful.
Well, it definitely is from athletics. And that came into my life before I went blind. And then I would say athletics has really kept me going through all the difficult times in my life. And it's definitely been the highest highs. And I knew that was going to save me. And so I was determined not to let it, it's so hard because especially during the pandemic, and this is one of the things that's happened during the pandemic is people were on Facebook more and they're like, I'm here, I'm hiking here, I'm running here. And it was so difficult. I had to just go off and I wasn't really on it very much before, but I was kind of trying to connect. So I got on Facebook and I'm like, the whole world's out doing all this great stuff and I don't get to go. But I just stopped doing that. And I was like, what can I do? And so, I did a virtual race and I put on the miles any way I could. I ran, I hiked, I ran with people sometimes, because sometimes at first, the first 2 months, nobody, but thank God I had a seeing eye dog that's trained to run and she ran with me, and it does keep your endorphins up and it does connect me to myself. And we would have great runs, and I actually was in better shape then running with my dog. But then as people kind of started to come around a little bit, they would come and do stuff with me and do a run. And I just felt that it was just this gift where I really feel connected to myself and to a higher sense of being. And probably my deepest relationships are built around that.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, we've got a chat box question that came in from another student, Dariana, and she asks, well, she's very kind to preface this with kind of sensitivity, and she wants to make sure that it's not too invasive of a question here. But she asks how it's been to maybe not be able to physically see your family members or people that you love. Has that been affected in different ways for either of you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's the thing, a big reason why I could do everything that I do at work also is I have a very big picture graphic memory. And from my whole family and friends and stuff, and the students that I worked with, no, I've never saw them, but I heard them grow up. I listened to their voices change. Well, I've noticed the difference with my parents too. I've only been blind 4.5 years, but they're getting older just like everybody else. And it's sad to see and or to hear like things change, especially with health and whatnot. And it is tough, but those are things that I had to overcome and overlook because the too much time I spend thinking about the past, how I remember this, how I remember this, it saddens me. And that's things that you just I've learned to overcome. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that does. Did you have something that you wanted to add, Luanne?
Can I hear the question again? Would you mind?
Yeah, Dariana asks how it has affected you to not be able to physically see your family members or people that you love, particularly right now. If you.
Oh, that's interesting. So I have a mother who's an artist as well, and that's been a really interesting thing because I can't see her work either. And so she continues to do artwork and she continues to look at artwork online and things like that. And one of the things that's been really cool about it is that she is great at describing artwork. And so sometimes she'll go online and we'll talk and she'll describe to me like these particular artist's style and how they would, and I totally get it. And she is really good at describing. She knows what makes a great painting or what you really want to know. It's just really, really been fun that way. I don't get to see her paintings, and it was harder, I think harder for her to say, can you see this? Can you see that? And I do think sometimes it's harder for the people around us to know that we can't see, to know that we don't engage the same way. But recently I went to her house and we just sat outside because she's a higher risk elderly woman. She's not elder, she's older. She's in her 80s. And we just sat outside and sculpted. And it was really great. And I have no idea what it looks like, but we can certainly feel each other's work. And we had a really nice day. And then I left. And so that was really great. It was because we stayed outside, and I didn't get to see her very much, and I still don't, because transportation wise I don't get to, and she is older, but there's always ways around everything. And like I said, I think it's harder sometimes on the people around me by far than it is for me. I'm okay with it. I'm at one with it. I'm not going to say it's easy all the time. Sometimes it, when I watch the Facebook things and everybody's doing all the stuff that I wanted to do, I was pissed, but I wasn't even pissed. I want to do things. I have the same desires I always did. And I've always had a lot of desire to do things. And some people might not think that, but if you would have known me before, you would definitely know that. And maybe people still do, but.
Yeah, I mean, just to jump in on that, I mean, I feel so similarly. Like, I miss working with you. I miss working with community members. I miss working with people directly. So I think it's felt in a pretty broad way right now as well. But this actually brings up a really nice transition to talking about tools and process. And I think we're going to try to open this up to another attendee today as well. If Zora, if you are here and able to unmute yourself, I'd love to invite you to ask your question.
Hi, I'm still here. My name is Zora. I'm a student at Washington Leadership. I'm one of the journal students, and I want to go into computer design and stuff like that. My question is for Luanne. What tools do you like to use when sculpting, and what's the process like when doing that?
What was the first part? What
tools?
Tools. Well, I'll tell you, I keep it really simple. And honestly, some of my favorite tools are a pencil with a broken end sometimes, or, eraser, just a simple pencil. Because I work with my hands, a lot. And I like skewers from the grocery store, like you use for kebabs. Seriously, I have all these really expensive sculpting tools and they sit in the box. I use forks. I use the most simple stuff. And I saw this artist one time, really famous artist, and he pulled out, what was it? Oh, it was a little dinosaur or something that he made nostrils in his. He was a famous artist that made faces, and he used some little toy that his kid had for making nostrils, and he used it on every sculpture he did. So I keep it really simple, and I don't. I also, when I use clay, one of the things I don't do is use spray bottles because I don't have control over. I can't tell what I've just sprayed, so I have a low dish that I can't knock over very well, just like maybe an inch deep. Just put a little bit of water, and then I just dip my fingers in and use that, because then I have control over. I know what I've put on there. I can feel what's going on. So my hands and really, really simple tools.
That's great. Thank you. And I remember us using like fabric and different materials as well to do imprints in clay.
Mm-hmm. Anything I can find.
Actually, yeah, absolutely. I know. I tell my students that all the time. Everything in the world around you is a tool. So actually, this brings up another question from one of my students, Monte, who I know, I don't know if he's actually here at the moment because he's on a train, but he submitted a question to me that I'd like to ask Jimmy. So Monte asks, how can you tell the different tools apart that are similar in your shop? And is there anything that you wish existed that doesn't yet?
That's actually a very good question, because there's a lot of tools out there actually for the blind. And well, this is just my experience, keep that in mind. The way I have a different set of sockets, metric, standard, different set of open wrenches. I don't know if you guys all know what the tools are, but the way what I do is on my wrenches, if it's a half inch, I put a zip tie in the middle. If it's a 16, if it's a 16th, 7/16, all the way up, I put it a quarter way through. It's hard to explain. It'd be more to show you. Those are ways that I have adapted in order to make it easier for me. When I have my sockets in a rail, I know which one's which by counting because I know there's 10 sockets on the rail. I know if the 3/4 size is the third one down from the big one. Little things that I've adapted. There's tools out there though for the blind as far as wrenches and sockets with braille on them. Put it this way, me punching in that time clock every morning too. There's braille numbers on it. Do I read braille? No. It's all by where the numbers are located. That's how I basically organize my sockets and tools. I have to be very meticulous. As far as things that aren't out yet, that really becomes out to the individual user, I believe, because I've talked to another blind mechanic and they use tools that wouldn't work for me. It's because one, I don't read braille. Sure, I could learn, but things of that sort. As far as tools, for me, I'm okay. But keep in mind though, my dexterity and my feeling is through the roof like crazy. I shock people with a lot of this stuff. So what may be easy for me may be harder for another person, like you said.
And Jimmy, I was going to ask you a follow-up question to that, because you're in a space that's kind of like shared by other coworkers, right? So how do you deal with like having your equipment and tools stay in place and not like being moved around by others?
Well, that kind of goes back to me. I'm very meticulous about my storage. If the mechanics want to play with me, and trust me, they have as a joke, they open my toolbox, a drawer, and they'll flip around where I keep certain slotted or flatheads or certain other things. They'll move them around. Allen keys, metric, standard, all that. They'll move those around. I'm very, very meticulous about where I store it. That's how I'm very uptight about that. Toolboxes are basically it, and like I said, there's toolboxes out there with magnets and stuff to just put where certain tools go. But me, I count the number of drawers. I know exactly where to go by just counting the drawers where I'm at and things of that sort.
Nice. I want to go back to kind of picking on the questions here to relay it to Luanne as well. This was again from Monte, but just kind of going at that question of like, is there anything that you wish existed right now that doesn't? I'm pushing this question because I'm going to be asking my students to do more work in the next semester, and I would love for them to have some specific projects to work on.
Well, I think it would be awesome if there was a way to, without having to have somebody help me braille all the colors, if there was some way in packaging on the tube that I would know what color it is. And that way I have more independence. I don't have to wait around for somebody to tell me what the color is. And then when I'm working, because I'm working intuitively, I'm like, oh, I want the red. I want to grab it. I want to feel it. And I do, like when I have a palette, I can count down, but I still have to have somebody tell me what color that is in the palette. I have to have somebody either help me set it up or it comes a certain way. I would really like something that's designed in the packaging on the tube that I would know ahead of time.
That's great. I really like that connects you to just being more, having more agency in what you do. And this actually connects to a question that Anne Cunningham just asked in the chat box. So Anne, do you want to just ask it? Do you want to unmute and jump in?
Sure. So Luanne, I was just wondering about color and stuff. And by the way, have you ever tried the app? There's a color identification app Is that?
I haven't tried it, but what I understand is it has a hard time telling the difference between like dark blue, dark brown, black, and like dark green. So
Yeah,
it's a little vague in those areas. But no, I haven't, and I really need to, because I don't know what I'm wearing anymore.
Also, the lighting really affects that. So you have to if you got a uniform place to do the light where the lighting was always the same, so it's got the same reading, that might help on that.
Yeah. And this brings up something, Anne, that I think is really interesting, because when you're working and you've got this idea and you're feeling very intuitive, and it's the same as like when I had to learn how to use the iPhone with the voiceover, you go from working so quickly, and Jimmy, you might relate to this too, because there's a learning curve where you used to work really, really fast and you're just intuitive, and you look at the paint and you spray it on there and you go, and now you're like, so it'd be so wonderful if there's a way not to break up that intuitive flow. And just like when you're working, Jimmy, I'm sure you get in a flow of working, and what's the next piece of this piece of mechanic that I want to work on, and how do I move to the next thing, and stay in your own space. And I feel that when I run as well. How do I run a race now that I'm hung on to somebody and they're telling me go, and I'm like, shut up. Because we all have this intuitive flow in everything we do. And how do we create tools and ways to stay in that space and still, be functional?
Absolutely.
And Jimmy, I think that kind of leads to the question that's follow up, because it's about process, and it's from Amanda Cornwell, and she asks, like, if you were always this meticulous, or did it change, like, since you lost your vision?
Well, that's for me. Like a lot of the coworkers that worked with me before, they knew I work like a machine. When I start, I don't stop. But the work I do now, it's completely different because I have no sight. I rely solely on my feel. So I still have to work like a machine. It's all about organization. It's all about where I put the bearing, what size is it, what snap rings.
Yeah.
It's all really key. And that level of meticulous, no, I've never been. And I've never really, but that's one thing also that I've noticed. It takes a lot out of my brain, because I've learned that I use my brain completely different than a sighted person does doing the work that I do. It overworks my brain in other ways that other people can't understand. And that's one thing that's a perfect example. Me coming back to work. Did anybody train me how to do the work? No. I learned that on my own. I learned ways to adapt. But I'm sure there's other ways of organization. Sure that there is things out there, but that's where, from my experience, it goes down to the individual and overcoming, and finding ways. That's what we're here for: design thinking, problem solving, and that's where I've found that it's been a lot of the problems that I've had starting at work, I've been able to solve them with just adapting.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jimmy. And just a quick time check. We have about 10 minutes or so left. So I think we'll switch over to Jimmy and Luanne. Since this is the first time you've actually met, do you have questions for each other that you want to ask?
Yeah, for me, here's one thing, Luanne. I'm inspired by you running and all that. That's really awesome. And like, I can only imagine, like you said, you get annoyed about people saying go, but it's like, run in my shoes. See how you could do it, But it's got to be, you feel accomplished. That's one thing I've learned, is establishing goals for myself. It could be a little goal from walking across the end of the block, and then I accomplished. I don't know. That's just one way I feel. I'm very inspired by how you run and do all that, and sculpting.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate what you said about being organized. I think that is kind of the key to staying in the flow. The more organized you are, and then you get used to the organization, So I appreciate always hearing that, because it's not my forte. I can be very organized, but I think that's a really difficult thing for people as you know, who become blind. And also I've had to super simplify what I keep, what I own, what's in my space. And that's all back to organization. So I really appreciate you sharing about that.
Yeah, no, it's been very helpful. And one thing regarding, because I have to deal with colors and stuff too. I mean, not in the depth that you do, but as far as red, black, brown, orange, yellow, things of that sort. I use TapTapC for a quick reference. But do those paint colors you have, do they have a barcode that you know of?
Probably. And I don't,
Because
barcode readers might tell, yeah.
yeah, because that's the route I would go, because for certain
Good idea.
things, like for me, I use the feeling for the bearings, because I work with a whole different size bearings for the reducers. They're big transmissions. And me, it's all about organization and all that. Yeah, sure. But there is times when things do get mixed up. I will not allow the parts people to fill my inventory, because it has to be done by me. I'm very, very anal about that. But there is times where I've had to use barcode reader to find out what a certain thing is when there is nobody around. That's one thing that I found very helpful for myself. But I mean, that could be one thing to look into.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
have
do
a
wanna-
question. Oh, sorry, Luanne. I was just going to ask you, in connected to that, I know there's, and some of our students focus like on digital solutions to helping others. Like, do applications like Be My Eyes, which is like an app that lets you call other people to give you like a video call support, are those helpful in any way, or is it is it harder to just go through that process?
I'll speak for
Well, I
myself.
haven't done it. It's on my phone and I've never done it. But I have called friends on FaceTime and they're like, isn't there an app? So I ought to try it.
And Jimmy, you were going to say something?
Are you still there, Jimmy?
I think you might be frozen. Is there a reason why, Luanne, why you haven't tried the app?
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Sorry, my thing cut out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yeah, we
can
can
hear
hear
you
now.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I missed that whole part. My phone tripped out. For me, Be My Eyes, I have used it, but honestly, in certain lighting, it's not great. It comes a hassle sometimes. I have used it at work too, but honestly, I use TapTapC a lot more. Over Be My Eyes, it's just quicker, it's straight to the point, things of that sort. Seeing AI also. Be My Eyes has not been a better friend to me. One thing I do use that I wish was more out there was games. I do play a game on for blind. It's on Audio Game Hub too. That is an app for blind gaming, but I wish there was more things out there.
And I think the reason I don't do it is I don't want to call somebody I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too invasive for me.
And that makes sense. And I think, like, I know from coming from an educator perspective and student perspective as well, we try to come up with ideas that sound good for us, and they don't necessarily take into account like the actual user. And that's the beauty of like Build a Better Book, and then Project Invent as well. And having this discussion like gives us your personal perspective in this regard too.
Right.
So thank you for your answers.
Mm-hmm.
Janet?
Yeah, I was gonna just kind of jump in and see if Luanne or Jimmy had any questions for the students that we have here today, or students that might be listening to this as it is recorded.
Janet, I mean, and Abraham and all the students, and Luanne, feel free to ask Janet or Abraham for my phone number. Any little questions you have, anything, I'm open.
I don't think I have a question, but I have a request. My request is when you see people that are blind, which my request would be that if it seems appropriate, if it seems a decent time, I mean, it's always a question, you know, it's always, is this a time where maybe I should say hello or not? But if you don't say hello to me particularly, I might not even know you're there or whatever. And I really like a hello when I'm moving around in the world. I really enjoy that. And in terms of teens, I've waited at lots of bus stops with lots of teens all around. I could do that for 200 students. And then one time there'll be a teen that'll be, you know, hi, are you doing okay? Is it, you know, and just, you know, start a conversation with me, or just, I don't know, just start a conversation with me. And I'm like, oh, wow, what a great kid, you know? I'm like, what an awesome student. And it's not like they need to know anything or help me or anything. It's just a nice hello. Nice to be part of the world and be recognized.
Thank you, Luanne. That's a beautiful thing for all of us to just be a little bit more human. And do you have any requests? Maybe not a question, but do you have any requests for of our students?
Any design, anything you come up with, follow through. There's a lot of great ideas, but it's all about following through and sticking to it. But here's the thing. One thing I've learned losing my vision is life's not about money. It's not about flashiness. Being sighted, you get a lot of drive from seeing people having nice things of that sort. Well, you lose that when you lose your vision. You get happy with what you have and you count your blessings. What I'm getting at is design thinking, entrepreneurship, building. Don't do it for the money. Do it for the cause. Because ultimately, money ain't gonna buy my vision back. Money ain't gonna help a lot. But it's students like you guys right now spending time that helps us in the community. And like Luanne said, say hello. And me, it's kind of annoying sometimes when I walk by people, it's not that they don't say hello, but I can't see them, and then they'll make a move and they scare the heck out of me. Things of that sort. But yeah, do it for the cause. We're all here for a reason. Make something that will last forever.
Thank you, Jimmy. That is, again, I feel like that's what makes my heart beat every day. I think about these things, and I think about how fortunate I am to know both of you, as well as many others that help to broaden all of our perspectives and inform the best design thinking process that we can possibly take into the world. So as I say to all my students, you know, we need to use our superpowers for good, and we need to think about everybody when we design. So I think we're starting to wrap up on the hour, and I just want to jump over to Abraham to see if you had anything that you wanted to end on here.
No, I think, I mean, it's perfectly covered. And I just want to thank everyone that's involved in this process, and to have Build a Better Book Network be supportive of this process, and allow for adaptation and openness in the types of work that we're doing, and bringing the people that need to be together in the same space. So I'm super thankful for that. Thankful for you to be a partner with you on this project. And yeah, I'm appreciative of this entire thing. And students, thank you for putting yourselves on camera and using your voice. That is like music to my ears as an educator these days.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much again. I hope that this was an informative panel for you all. And again, I think it's just really good to learn how to collaborate in these remote times that we have. While it's really difficult to get physical feedback on the products that we're making or the inventions that we're creating, we can at least talk to people all across the country and get the stories and the backgrounds of folks that we wouldn't have known otherwise. So I'm personally very grateful to be able to do that, because I'm connecting all my favorite people across the country right now on this one call. So I feel very fortunate to be able to do that. So on that note, I think we can hand it over to Stacey or Gigi or anybody that wants to jump in from the Build a Better Book network here.
Well, I think we just want to say thanks to both of you, Janet and Abraham, for kind of coordinating this and pulling everybody together, and especially for inviting the students to join us. It was great to have their voices on the call. And just a huge thanks to Luanne and Jimmy, and just appreciate your input so much, and kind of, you know, reminders that you're giving to all of us, not just the students, but those of us working with students in other spaces too. It's just really helpful to hear your voices during this time. So glad to hear that you're doing well and have found some ways to adapt, especially during this challenging time. But thanks, we're really excited to hear and see kind of what your students are working on, Janet, and some of the other groups of students that we have. A group of students in Alabama as well. Shout out to middle school students in Tresco, Alabama, that are going to be working on some Build a Better Book projects this year too. And yeah, hopefully we can get together in these online spaces again to kind of evaluate some of those projects too.
All right, well, we have hit 4 o'clock officially, so take care, everybody, and thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Long live Build a Better Book.
Thank you so much. All right, have a good one all.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.